as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Cascavetti. Go ahead, Tracy, for some opening remarks.
Turn it off. It is. I know Tracy's. It's got a lot of feedback.
Good evening. Sorry for that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Cascavetti. I'm the acting director of the Materials Management Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. You'll hear us refer to ourselves as EGLE tonight. That's the way we refer to our agency. We are your state environmental agency. We also have our colleagues from the United States Environmental Protection Agency here tonight. At EGLE, our responsibility is to protect Michigan's air, water, and land. One of the tools we use to do that is environmental permitting. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is the application for an environmental permit for the hazardous waste landfill here in Van Buren Township to expand. That's the waste disposal landfill. Before we get started, I first just want to thank all of you for coming out and being here. I know many of you have strong feelings about the landfill and the proposed expansion, and it's really very clear how strongly you feel about this and how strongly you feel about the community and the future of the community. And I appreciate all of you taking the time to come out and be with us tonight. It takes a lot of effort to leave your homes and be engaged and learn about this issue and spend time here and share your opinions with us. And so first and foremost, I want to thank you for being here with us. I do want to take a moment to briefly explain how this process works. First and foremost, the state of Michigan does not choose where landfills are established, where they're built, or where they're expanded. Land use decisions like that are local decisions, and this decision was made many decades ago for a landfill to be established on this property. So the state does not cite a landfill at this location. Our job is to decide if a landfill meets the environmental and safety standards that are spelled out in state and federal law. And that is how we make our decision. Those standards are prescribed in state and federal law, and it's our job to compare their engineering plans and their operational plans, their monitoring plans, and all of that. And if they meet those standards, we are obligated to issue permits. Our decision cannot take into account the popularity or opposition to a project. That said, your input on this is important, and we welcome your input, and the comments you share tonight can help us understand local concerns and that may influence the outcome of this process. So what we've done is we've put a draft license on public comment. We've said we've reviewed the application and this is the license we would propose to issue to this landfill, and that's what was made available for you all to review and give us comment on. So if you have comments on that document, tonight is one of your several opportunities to share that with us. And we can take those comments and those can influence permit conditions, monitoring requirements, the way that we communicate with the community, the way we expect the landfill to communicate with the community. So I don't want folks to think that their voice here does not matter. Again, we welcome your input and it is very important to us, and we will carefully consider any public comment we get on this matter. For those of you that were with us several weeks ago, or maybe it was 6 weeks ago, we were here in this room. I just want to point out that tonight's meeting is a little bit different than that last meeting. That last meeting was what we considered an informational session, where our technical staff gave a presentation, and then we answered as many of your questions as we could that night. We're going to do a similar abbreviated program like that, where these folks are going to give you a brief presentation about what we're proposing to do out here, and then take some questions. But the other part of tonight is what we call a formal hearing. This is our opportunity to hear from you, and we don't respond during a formal hearing. So I say that because I know sometimes it can be really frustrating to come up and voice your opinion to your government and not get a response back. But that's what a formal hearing is, and it's our obligation to hear from you tonight. So we have most of our time set aside tonight to hear from you on the license. If you do not get all of your questions answered during that first question and answer period, we have well over a dozen staff here. I know a lot of you have took the opportunity to talk to them out in the hallway. They will be in the back of the room. They will be out in the hallway. We will be here after the meeting. We are happy to talk to you one-on-one if any of the questions did not get answered. So with that, I will stop taking up the time of this panel. But again, just thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to our technical staff to get the presentation started. sneeze isn't right tonight. So welcome. Once again, my name is Christine Matlock. I am the permit engineer for Wayne Disposal, and we do have multiple technical staff on this panel tonight. We have Jay Paquette for radiological protection. We've got Todd Zinda, apologies, for our district inspector. Joe Rogers, who is our project geologist, and then Emily Keener, who is our EPA's PCB permit writer. So we're just gonna get right into it because we want to be able to answer your questions until 7 o'clock when we start the hearing portion. So I'm just gonna scroll through these, apologies. So welcome, like Tracy mentioned, we really appreciate you coming out. This is important to us. We want to hear from you, and we also want to be able to give you the information that you need. So tonight's agenda, the open house, everybody has already seen it. They've been out there. We've got staff. We've got posters to learn about the facility. And then the presentation, it'll be myself, and then I'll hand it off to Emily for a short presentation about the EPA portion. We will have a short Q&A session with the staff that are on the stage, myself included, and then we'll move into the public hearing. Oh, I apologize, wrong presentation. My apologies. Technology, when it works, is really great, but when it doesn't, it's awful. Okay, you got it. There we go. So we're all aware we're here to talk about Wayne Disposal Facility. For those of you who do not know where it's located, it is located in Van Buren Township, so it's between the Willow Run Airport and I-94. It actually falls on I-94 Service Drive Road. It has been licensed since 1990. So as Tracy mentioned, this landfill has been here for many decades. It was actually started prior to our current environmental law. So just as an FYI for that. We're here tonight to talk about the draft license though. So what does it include? What does that mean? It includes what I think everybody is all aware of. It includes a vertical expansion. So it goes from about 22.5 million cubic yards, which is currently permitted, to 27.5 million cubic yards, which is what the proposal is. They are also asking for 2 permitted container storage areas, so that would mean that they would like to place roll-off boxes and like 55-gallon drums in a storage area. But what it doesn't include is any new waste codes. So they're not asking for any new waste codes, and then they're not asking for any treatment. So this license process. Wayne Disposal submitted an application in November of 2021, and the department has moved through this process since that point. It involved, was the application complete, which it was determined to have a completeness. Then project staff looked at the technical review. We're looking at what is required by law in their expansion. Can they design, construct? Can they operate it? Can they maintain and inspect it? And also what happens when they're finished with it, right? This application has to list out all these items, and all those items have to be compared to current federal and state law, and that's what the technical team did. So we prepared a draft license, which we have put out, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Tonight is the public hearing. We are in a public comment period until October 31st. And so no decision has been made. right? Like this, we're here asking for you to review this material and we want to hear from you. So after the public comment period that ends October 31st, the department will review all of those comments. And then, so as Tracy mentioned, you're not going to get a response here tonight, but you will get a response, right? So if you've signed in, you'll be placed on the facility mailing list, and we will issue what's called a response to comments. So all of your comments will be addressed, but it will be addressed at the end of the process. And then that's when final decisions will be made. So when we talk about a license, we have some very general license conditions that we include in every license. So waste analysis, this is like the type of waste, like their processes to ensure that the waste that they're accepting is actually what they're supposed to take. Inspection schedule, are they inspecting all of these different things? So their leachate collection, their caps, all these different things on a proper schedule. Also includes like personnel training. Their personnel have to be trained up to a federal standard contingency plan. You know, there's a lot of concern around contingency plan, and we review it according to the federal and state law, but there are also license conditions about it. And then also like closure plan and financial insurance, which is important. So the site-specific draft license conditions, though, these are where like the meat of the license are. It's about the container storage. It's a new proposed container storage area. So there are new license conditions around that. There is a prohibition on reactive waste. So waste disposal is not permitted to accept, store, or dispose of any reactive waste. The other big ticket item is environmental monitoring. So these are not like an exhaustive list, but groundwater monitoring, like all of the requirements around that, requirements around surface water, ambient air, leak detection, radiological. Something that is special for waste disposal is that transporters of waste are required to go through a certain truck route. And so that was actually a license condition that was based off of public comment many years ago. They also have to update their financial assurance, and then they have to include standard operating procedures, such as their wind, it's called wind speed standard operating procedure. Another component of the license are compliance, so inspections. So even, no matter what the determination is, the state will continue to inspect this facility, which includes an inspection by Hazardous at least 4 times a year, which is regulatory required. But then we also go out and audit their groundwater monitoring program. We audit their facility operating record. We actually go on site and ensure that what their sampling protocols and even their sampling, like the actual samples, are analyzed properly. So that's also another component of the compliance. So now I'm actually going to hand it off to Emily for the PCB component.
Thanks, Christine. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to join us and let us know your comments and concerns and questions. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Emily Keener, and I'm a hazardous waste and PCB permit writer for EPA in Region 5. And I work on the PCB approval for waste disposal that we're discussing. Speak a little louder, please. Yeah, is that better? Yes, thank you. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Emily Keener. I am a permit writer in EPA Region 5. And I work on the PCB approval for waste disposal. So waste disposal applied to renew its approval or permit to continue accepting polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs. And EPA has reviewed the renewal application and written a draft approval that's now accepting public comments. Now this draft PCB approval is separate from the Michigan Eagle license to continue accepting hazardous waste. However, some of our draft approvals conditions do refer to Michigan Eagle's license, and our issuance timeline is being coordinated with Michigan Eagle's. So today we're joining Michigan Eagle for this public hearing to discuss both draft permits. Yeah, so that's why we're here today. So some background on PCBs. PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, are man-made chemicals that were manufactured in the United States from the 1920s through the 1970s. They consist of two connected phenyl rings, those are these hexagons in the diagram, with any number of attached chlorine atoms. So in this case, there are two, it could be anywhere from 1 to 10, and they attach onto the corners of the carbon, corners of the molecule that you can see. So PCBs can be found in a variety of products that were manufactured in the 1920s through 1970s. They were banned in 1979 because of evidence of risks to human health and the environment. Prior to the ban, they were included in things such as electrical transformers and capacitors, such as those you'll see outside as part of your electrical grid, old electrical devices or appliances, hydraulic oils, fluorescent lighting, cable insulation and other insulators like fiberglass, felt, foam, and cork, adhesives and tapes, paints, caulking, plastics, and carbonless copy paper, and floor finishes. So they're still around in our world today in older buildings and machines and products that haven't been replaced or disposed of prior to that, from prior to the PCB ban. I'm sorry, we're still here. So since the PCB ban, EPA has regulated the proper disposal of old PCB containing products and materials, like the ones that I listed. You have to come into contact with and absorb PCBs into your body in order for them to cause health effects. So when waste is handled properly, there is no pathway for human exposure. Now, at Wayne Disposal specifically, what goes into the landfill is a lot of PCB contaminated soil and old electrical equipment like those transformers and capacitors that I mentioned. That's a lot of what the PCB waste at Wayne consists of. So why 2 permits might be something that you guys are curious about. So a PCB approval, our draft permit from EPA, is something that EPA issues to address PCBs specifically. It applies requirements to waste disposal under the Toxic Substance Control Act, and TSCA permits, TSCA, are issued only by EPA, and that's true in every state. It's not a rule that's delegated for the states to write permits for. Now, the hazardous waste license is issued by Michigan Eagle, and instead of PCBs, it addresses a variety of RCRA hazardous wastes. So RCRA is the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, and those are the rules that are included in the Michigan Eagle license. Now, Michigan Eagle is authorized by EPA to administer the program for RCRA permitting. So Wayne Disposal has been disposing of PCBs under TSCA approvals from EPA since 1997. The Wayne Disposal's PCB approval was most recently renewed in 2019, so that's the renewal that they're operating on, along with their most recent modification in 2022. They submitted their renewal application, which we reviewed and wrote this draft for in November of 2021. Here I have a map similar to the one that Christine showed earlier. So to orient you, I-94 runs along the bottom of this map. And the landfill cells that are approved for PCB disposal are located within the red outline on this map. So that's all within Master Cell 6. With this renewal, I think as Christine also discussed, there are some proposed design modifications, including cell layout and liner grade changes to the final cover grade, and an alternative final cover, and relocation of some existing leachate detection and leachate pumps.
Can you go back to that map real quick? It says closed, like see outside of the red on to the right of that? What does that mean? All that's closed, meaning it's already met its capacity?
Yeah, those are closed cells, but we'll take questions at the end too.
I never thought.
Can Yeah.
speak up a little too? We can barely hear you.
Yeah, is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
You started that way before, but then you dropped it, and then we can't hear you.
Thank you for pointing it out. Okay. All right, so the current permit and the proposed renewal require extensive environmental monitoring and controls, so that we can make sure that pollutants of concern aren't leaving the waste disposal property. Controls used to keep waste in place include the double landfill liner, the leachate collection system, the leachate detection system, and the stormwater management system. The double landfill liner is a two-layer barrier system consisting of synthetic and clay materials that's designed to prevent leachate from getting through and contaminating groundwater. You may have been out there earlier and seen a life-size representation of that double liner system. So there's also extensive environmental monitoring in place to make sure that waste is and contaminants and concerns are staying on site. That includes groundwater monitoring, surface water monitoring, perimeter air monitoring, leachate level monitoring and sump inspections, leachate production volumes, leachate sampling and analysis, and PCB soil sampling. And all of this is written into reports that are submitted and reviewed regularly by both EPA and Michigan Eagle. The technical specifications in the application have been reviewed by expert engineers from both EPA and Eagle to ensure that they're protective and meet regulatory and engineering requirements. Technical permit requirements include environmental monitoring and controls that we talked about on the last slide, quarterly and annual reports, notification requirements, employee training programs, inspections at the facility, facility security and controlled access, truck wheel wash stations for vehicles leaving the landfill area, and the regular approval renewal process. So less than 5 years after each renewal, waste disposal is submitting a new application that EPA is reviewing to ensure compliance and protection. So as I said before, we're accepting comments on our draft approval for PCBs at waste disposal. You can submit public comments to EPA through the end of October. You can submit them through our website, by email or by mail. There's information here on the screen, so my email address and our mailing address for our Region 5 office in Chicago. And we have some additional contact information. Again, my email and phone number, as well as the email and phone number of our community involvement coordinator, Francisco. And then there are a couple of links here for where you can learn more about PCBs. If you're interested, we have information on the EPA website, and there's also information available on Michigan Eagle's website. Thank you.
Okay, Christina, are we ready to take questions now, or?
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay, I'm just gonna do something really quick, everybody. I'm gonna
Try to switch to this. Use it that forward. Hopefully it'll work.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Sam come up here again and grab another mic. Hopefully this will work. Yeah, you can do that, Stan. All right, we have Sam, the other microphone here. We have got until about 7 o'clock to take your questions. And then we have to get on to the public hearing part. I just want to make a couple really quick comments before we get started. Just a few reminders that if you want to make an official comment tonight, to do that, make sure you go back to that blue table with Tiana and Elizabeth, and they give you one of these comment cards. Looks like this, a comment card. You just fill that out. You don't have to put your address and everything on there, but your name at least, and your email if you want to keep contacted by us. And then check yes, you want to make a statement. Take it back to them or leave it and raise your hand when we take comments and we'll grab it from you. We're going to just to call you up for your comments. If you don't feel comfortable making a comment in front of everybody, because I totally understand that, a lot of people aren't comfortable doing that, you can also write your comment on one of these pieces of paper and turn it into them. You can also there will be a QR code that's gonna come up here in a minute, and you can scan that. It's also at the desk. It's one of those codes you can take your picture of with your camera. You can take a picture of it, and basically it takes you to a website, or you can submit your comment there as well. So maybe even if you don't think of your comment tonight, but you go home and you think of your comment, you can do it those various ways, okay?
So where do we get those little cards?
So the little cards are right back there at that table. And you can just fill it out and leave it with them, and we'll be collecting them in just a minute. Tracy's gonna get a few, thank you. And then we also have this Stay Connected card that's at the back table there. If you wanna stay connected with us on the site, you can do that. Also make sure you sign in tonight with your email, because that's gonna help us, keep in touch with you. We'll send you emails about the site, okay? All right, let's start taking some questions. So Stan's gonna take this side, and I'll take this side. Yeah, you have a question about the process?
If we have more than one comment, do we need more than one comment card?
No, so when you make your comment tonight, you will have a chance to make one comment tonight, okay? One comment tonight, you have 3 minutes. Everybody's gonna have up to 3 minutes. If you wanna make additional comments or longer comments, let's say, you can do that through our other methods by writing in, emailing us, getting that code, and sending it to us that way. Okay? All right, so we're gonna take some questions right now. Sam's gonna kind of watch this side, and I'm gonna watch that side. So if you wanna raise your hand and work your way to the outside aisle, or we can come by and take your question with a microphone. Because we need this, because they can hear you up front. So, anybody on either side got a question right away? Okay, Sam, I'm gonna go back here, then Sam right here, okay? All right, first question.
Hi, the way I'm hearing it is that as long as WDI is following the rules and regulations, it doesn't matter what we say, that they will be approved for this expansion regardless as to how the community feels about it. Is that correct?
So this public comment period is really important. We want to hear from the public in terms of items that the department can take action on. So the department is legally obligated to issue the license if it meets all the technical requirements. However, the community, you know what you need in your community, right? If there are concerns about environmental monitoring, if there are concerns about truck traffic, if there are concerns about particular waste or something else like that, like we want to hear those items. You're correct that if the comment is we don't want it here, that's something the department can't take into consideration. But there are other ways we want to be able to hear from you. So we do want to hear from you. We do.
Question for the EPA. You said the PCB licenses, you're handling that. PCBs last for centuries. So in your consideration for the license and management of it, how many years have you considered, and how will it be monitored going forward? Thank you.
Yeah. So is this on?
Turn it on.
You have to turn on.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an important question, and I want to make sure that I give you a complete and accurate answer for that. So, and I don't have that assessment in front of me. So we can get your information. I'd love to get you on that.
Do I put it on the
Okay.
comment card?
Mhm.
Yeah, so if you have a question, you can give them your card, Tracy, afterwards, or whatever. Thank you. Okay, a question right here.
Hey, I'm a little mixed up on an understanding. So this meeting tonight is for, the expansion, so just for PCBs going into that landfill, no nuclear or radioactive material whatsoever as of now? Is that what this is all about? I mean, is that what's going on?
So there are 2 licensing actions that are happening currently. Eagle has published a draft operating license which oversees hazardous waste and TMARM, to your point. And then the EPA has a draft TSCA approval which oversees the PCB portion of it. So we're talking about both tonight. So we're taking comments about both of them. but I'm gonna hand it off to Jay.
And just to be clear on the T-norm part, that's part of statute. So in 2018, Public Act 688 was enacted and went into force in 2019, essentially making it legal for Part 111 and also Part 115 landfills to dispose of T-norm. Okay, and that is included in the license, so that's correct.
I was just going back to the beginning there, it said, there was no new chemicals being drafted by WDI, but their thing in the very beginning said it was just all about PCBs, which can be radioactive material. Maybe I'm taking it wrong.
So Wayne Disposal's current operating license, which was issued in 2012, already allowed the hazardous waste codes that they are reapplying for, along with T-norm. It was already included. So in PCB, it was already had a valid TSCA approval. That's why we're saying no new waste codes, because they were already permitted to take these items.
All right, I'm just gonna do a quick check with our panel too. Be careful with acronyms, because we already got several acronyms that was thrown out there. So T-norm, just want to remember everybody, T-norm, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and keeping us honest about that. So technologically enhanced, naturally occurring radioactive material. So
You also said, yeah, you also said TSCA. Can you explain what that is?
that one I'm going to defer.
Jim, can I jump in here just for a second? I just want to make sure folks understand. So Wayne Disposal Landfill, I want you guys to think of it this way. They do three main things. Okay, they take three main categories of waste. Okay, hazardous waste, and what they just defined for you as T-norm. Okay, this is a type of radiological material that comes from the earth. Right, this is not weapons manufacturing or nuclear energy, right? It's a type of radiological material that is concentrated through human actions, so we call it technologically enhanced. Okay, so if they are extracting oil or gas from the ground, and the material that you pull up, it may have some naturally occurring radiological material in it, and we concentrate that through human activity. Okay, so you'll hear us say T-norm, call us out on it if you don't understand what that term means, but let's put that under the category of radiological material. So they do three things: hazardous waste, radiological material. The state of Michigan regulates those two things. PCB waste is the third thing they do, and that's regulated by EPA. So tonight we're talking about both things because we try to coordinate our permitting of this site. Our hazardous waste license is good for 10 years, but a PCB approval is only good for 5 years. This is just a quirk of the law. And so when they coordinate like this, we try to bring those actions together, so we're only coming to the community at one time to talk about it. But I want you guys, those are the three main things that this landfill does. They do not take regular garbage, they don't take household trash, they don't take nuclear energy waste, hazardous waste, radiological material, PCBs.
Can we define
All right,
TSCA
well,
though?
right here, I'm just gonna take this question really quick, man.
Well, I wanted to.
Did you want to add?
I wanted to respond. Someone had asked what the TSCA acronym stood for. It is the Toxic Substances Control Act.
Thank you. All right, real quick.
So the license also, it's already 120 acres large, and they want to expand it 22 stories high. But there is no limit to how high it can be, is that correct?
Can we put that back? Yeah, we changed the PowerPoint, but you can.
Did you guys get that?
I did, sorry. Tracy was asking if we could bring up the map, but we have to switch to PowerPoint presentations for that real quick. So there is no legal limit to how high. However, when the facility proposes an expansion, any expansion, so this one just happens to be vertical, it has to, the facility has to demonstrate, essentially they have to prove to the department that they can design it, they can construct it, they can operate it, they can inspect it and maintain it and close it according to the laws that are already in place. And Wayne Disposal has done that currently. But that also means, right, like that there is more financial assurance, right? Like there's all these little items that happen, but currently there's no law, but they have to maintain, like their height is dictated by these technical requirements. And sorry, so apologize. She brought this one up because the red rectangle is actually the footprint of where they would do the vertical expansion.
And Christine, someone was asking earlier about closed. Can you just
Yeah.
show like the grassy?
We're gonna try this.
Sorry, we got 3 mics in this room, one of them's wired.
Is there anything that shows the footprint expansion?
Yeah, so the red triangle, so the property outline is in this yellow, it's their power, it's like the polygon, that's not the right word for it, but it's the yellow outline of their property. The red rectangle, which is shaded, it's on, sorry, the west side, northwest side is the footprint for the vertical expansion. So we talked about closed. As you can see, there are 4 distinct, sorry, I don't have a pointer. There are 4 distinct, like what we call cells to the east side, and those are closed. They were closed under solid waste, which was a type 2, it's 115 program. There were 2 of them that were closed under the hazardous waste program. And so this means that they have been capped and they're not going to be like reused. They're not going to like take away and start. They're not going to remove this grass and just start taking and placing waste there. That's not happening. They're legally not allowed to. If they wanted to do anything to this landfill, to those closed cells, they would have to come back to the department for permission. They haven't asked to do that currently.
There's nothing stopping them from asking.
No, we can't dictate their business.
Okay, Sam, you got a question right there, go ahead.
Are there any penalties for violating the license agreement, and is there any mechanism to prevent against abuse of the license that they're going to receive?
So we inspect this facility 4 times a year and evaluate compliance with the existing license conditions. Depending on the severity of the violations, if there are any identified, that could prompt additional enforcement action. So there's not a set penalty amount. It's done through a violation notice, a type of correspondence. If it's egregious enough, we have to go to the next step, which would be an administrative consent order. And that's an agreement between the state and the facility of how they're going to correct the issue. And then that typically would involve a penalty. If there cannot be an agreement through a consent order, then the state would go towards litigation. So the facility is inspected quarterly. If there's minor violations, typically we would just resolve those through correspondence or a follow-up inspection if it was just a labeling issue or something that's easily correctable. If there's a major release or a major compliance issue, those typically escalate to an enforcement action, and that goes through our enforcement unit and results in an administrative consent order with penalties.
Are the results of inspection public?
Hold on, can you repeat that because we couldn't hear exactly?
Are the results of your inspections in arms public?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's an antiquated website, unfortunately. It's called our waste data system. You can look at the compliance history for the facility. If anybody wants more information on compliance history, I have that, and I'm willing to talk to you after the hearing. But all that information is available online. It's a little difficult to navigate, but it's there. You can also go to the EPA ECHO webpage, ECHO, and you can look up any facility there and look up their compliance history, not just for hazardous waste, but for air quality, water resources. So that's another good tool for you to look up overall compliance in the facility.
Just a quick.
Yeah, and Todd is the inspector for this facility, so that's Todd's in there. And we can also, Todd, right, we can, in a follow-up email to people who registered, we can send you that link to find that information, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah, we can do that. I got a question back here real quick.
So you never really answered the question, how high can they go? You said they have to be within certain parameters, but what are those parameters? We have 2 airports right by this town.
No, that's correct. So currently, how high they go is dictated by their technical capabilities. Right now, they've proven that they have the technical capability of designing, constructing, right, and operating, maintaining the landfill to the 27 million, like and a half million cubic yards. To your point, there is Willow Run to the north. And Willow Run actually is governed by FAA requirements. And so there are height requirements per the FAA that this department has no control over. So they would have to comply with our requirements, but then they also have to comply with the FAA requirements.
Okay, Todd, you had a question on that side right there?
Yeah, I've got one there.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so number 80, you guys are not legally required to, let us know about shipment notifications. Now, you know, accidents happen, and you're on 94, this is Michigan, we get icy roads. And I'm a concerned resident. What are your safety measures if there is a truck accident or whatever, with not just the road, the air quality, waste of water, all of that that's surrounding that area, what are your plans?
It's a good question. So a big question about basically what I'm going to use, transportation response with really any spill. And that's true of this facility, right? Materials that would be coming to Wayne Disposal, but anywhere else. So we did answer this a little bit at the last meeting, so I'll kind of try to paraphrase it a little bit, but what exists are what's called a DOT hazardous response guidebook, okay? So that's the Department of Transportation issues a guidebook for first responders. To be clear, none of us at this table are first responders. So that's going to be your fire, EMS, police, et cetera. That informs them on how to respond to a transportation incident with an entire book of hazardous materials. So that's the first and foremost. So they're informed right off the top based on what's being transported on our road. Okay, that's evaluated by federal professionals and updated as needed. That's actually available to the public. You can actually get an app on your phone that'll indicate to them, how do you respond? What type of evacuation order would you maybe put in place? So like, let's say anhydrous ammonia, right? That sounds complicated. That can be a chemical exposure concern for fertilizer. Train derailment in my community has had that, right? And that will dictate a local evacuation temporarily, but that's the protective action for that, right? So there's a scaled response. If it's bad enough, right, and it warrants it, the state has emergency operations plans to work with local communities to conduct monitoring, right, conduct environmental cleanup. And I'm answering this more broadly because this applies across the state, not just specifically to Wayne Disposal, okay?
Sorry, I think your second portion though was about environmental monitoring, correct? Is how it was reported out. We're moving to a new system. Not in my waters. MyEnviro. So we're in the process of migrating to MyEnviro, which is accessible to the public, I believe it is. We are not quite there. So if you have questions, we're more than happy to let you know. I think we're also posting annual monitoring reports on the website, but we are moving towards like that transparency of that environmental monitoring on MyEnviro. It just has not happened yet, but it is in the process.
All right, we got lots of hands up. I think they keep popping up. We're gonna keep working our way around. Got one right here, one here, one here.
Name's Richard Harrison. During the significant rain event in August 23rd, Belleville received 7.36 inches of rain in less than 24 hours, exceeding the 100-year storm of 6.1. A fully capped 600-acre site like WDI that equals over 119 million gallons of runoff, with 20.5 million gallons above the 100-year threshold. WDI's 2 5-acre basins would have to be 37 feet deep to contain that volume, yet there is no evidence basins are even 31 feet deep. Did stormwater migrate off-site during this significant event? How is ECO evaluated whether WDI is in compliance with Part 111 stormwater engineering standards? The reason I'm asking this is the best plans of mice and men sometimes goes astray.
Valid
And
question.
even though the best plans are made, we have these events. And because we're near Belleville Lake, we're near the Huron River, we have 365,000 people within 10 miles of this facility. I worry about this.
Or how about Joe? We give it to Joe.
So yeah, they're, as you pointed out, they're required to manage the 100-year storm. So that I think is about 4.5 or that type of volume. The event you mentioned, I don't, there was not an issue at Wayne Disposal. The basins that they have, they have an overflow basin in the north and the south, and so they have much more capacity than the 100-year storm that they're required to have per our licensing requirements. But with respect to the date that you mentioned, I don't remember there being a problem. There certainly wasn't any illicit or required overflow discharge.
Could you investigate and give us a real answer, because the storm basins are nowhere the size that you're talking about. We've done the math.
We can't hear your question, unfortunately, but we'll follow up just a minute.
Well, I mean,
can you repeat it, Joe? I can answer if you repeat it.
Yeah, he was saying that the basins are not big enough to manage that much water based on the math that they've done. And so, again, they're required to have a 100-year storm. So that's what they're required to have. That's the only thing we can make them have. I know they have extra capacity with respect to the volume that, was cited here, the 7.5 inch. Maybe it didn't rain that much at Wayne Disposal. I don't know. I just know they didn't have any problems in terms of what they have. They're required to, if there is an overflow, they're required to report that. If they don't have the capacity to send it out, to manage it, they have to send it out to the drain. They have to be reported to the department. And
So it's not up to you to investigate something obvious that happened. If they didn't report it, it didn't happen, right?
I mean, I did not go out there that day, if that's what you're asking.
Right.
But, I mean,
the entire Van Buren Township sewers were backed up in.
We can't hear anything you're saying, sir, over there, unfortunately. So,
he was questioning whether we investigated the that issue to, I guess, basically to make sure that Wayne was being straightforward with us or whatever. There wasn't a problem. Which again, they're only required to have the 100-year capacity. They have more. We were not aware of any issues in that event, and I don't believe there was any.
The evidence doesn't show they have the.
Sir,
we
have to be able to keep it on the mic. We've got people online. I just want to add one thing to what Joe's saying. So the entire site is designed so that all of the water that falls on the site goes out in one of two ways. Okay, so leachate from the landfill. So leachate is water that comes in contact with waste. So when you look in that red area, the area that they're actively adding waste to, and when the rain comes down and it soaks through that, it goes to the bottom of the landfill, that's leachate. It hits the liner, there's a collection system for it. That goes off, there's a treatment plant on site. It treats that leachate and it goes into the sewer. Okay, so this is probably the same sewer where your residential waste goes to the South Huron Valley Utility Authority. Okay, so what we call contact water. Water off of the concrete roads where the trucks drive and there might be dust on their wheels or things like that. All of that water goes through the treatment plant into the sewer. These closed grassy areas go into the sedimentation basin, and that goes through a different treatment plant. And so there's another treatment plant on site that treats the water through big carbon vessels, and then it goes into the cork drain. Okay, that is not supposed to be contact water. That's not leachate. That's not from the truck areas. That's all from the grassy areas. That discharge into the cork drain is controlled by a different environmental permit, and that permit says that if they ever have to bypass their treatment system, they're legally required to report it. Okay, I've worked for the department for 24 years. I have a recollection of one overflow event back in the early 2000s. This facility is subject to all of that reporting requirement. We don't have any reports that there was a bypass on those days. We did look at the discharge through the cork drain on those days. You can see the volume go up in the following days, which to me implies they held the water in the pond. And then as the storm receded, they continued to treat it through those vessels. All I can tell you at this point is they're required to report a bypass, and no bypass was reported. Your point is taken, and we can talk to our stormwater folks about, some follow-up that we may need to do in the event of large storm events, where that may be a good time for us to check in with our facilities and say, how are things going? All right, it's a good point.
We're asking.
All right, we gotta keep moving on. I got a question over here, then we got one over there. We're gonna work over the front. We got some over there too, so go ahead.
I have a question about previous violations and warnings. So I see 5, one in September of 2024, 22 and 22, 2 more in 2018. Do you guys take in consideration the warnings or violations as to whether these guys can operate well when you look at renewal of their requirement renewal? I pulled this from WDSPI, is that the system?
Yeah, WIDS.
So they were just recently, there was just a citation on September 10th, 2024.
Yeah,
So it would seem to me, if, it's happening every couple of years, are you allowed to take that into consideration with approval?
that violation that you're specifically talking about is for Michigan disposal. That's their treatment facility that's located on the same property, but is not the same site ID for this license renewal. Michigan disposal has a different site ID and a different hazardous waste license.
So we look at different sections.
Yeah, so yeah, and it's kind of a confusing situation because they're on the same property, but Michigan disposal's a separate entity and has a separate license, although they are collectively owned by the same company.
No. So I want to elaborate. You have a good point, right? Like, can we take violations into consideration?
Yes.
What we're looking at is how and have they resolved those violations? If they have resolved them and they are like in a consent order, or they have resolved them and they have changed operations, like we take that into consideration. At this time, they don't have any open violations. They have resolved everything that's happened in the past. So they've modified their operations or techniques or whatever it may be to satisfy that issue and basically to meet the law.
I'll just add one thing to that. So to the, I'm sorry, Rich, maybe it's a question. Okay, sorry. To your point, so we cannot issue a license to a facility that's in violation. Okay? But similarly, there's not a zero tolerance policy. Okay, so we have an enforcement procedure that says when Todd finds violations or violations are reported to us, we deal with them sort of on a case-by-case basis. We look at the severity of it. We look at how repeated those violations are. If we come into a situation where a facility is in chronic violation or the violations are, of a level that requires sort of formal resolution, like the penalties we were talking about over here before, we have to take care of that. All of that has to get resolved before we can consider issuing a license. So we have at other facilities had instances where we put reissuing the license on hold while we resolve the legal issue of the violations. Okay?
You see a pattern, like every year or every other year. If you
Understood.
operate straight for 5 or 6 years, what makes you think you can operate?
Sure. So the question is about repeated violations. Okay. So like I said, there's not in the law like any sort of 3 strikes and you're out policy or something. We look at whether or not they are capable of complying, right? If we identify, let's say we identified a dust problem, okay? And we said, okay, there's a dust problem. We've issued you a violation notice. What are you going to do about it? You have X amount of time to correct it. They come back and they say, okay, we're going to, do these 3 things. If they do those things, that violation is resolved. But what we can't do is sort of say cumulatively, okay, over a decade, you've had too many violations, therefore you don't get a license anymore. So if we were to, and this is just a point I want to spend, I'll just take like 30 more seconds. If we have a facility like this and they have violations and we get to the point where we say, we do not believe this facility can comply with the law. Okay, and we have an example of a landfill like this in Michigan. It's up in the Upper Peninsula. We've tried everything we can. We've tried this consent order. We've tried violation notices. We do not think they can comply with the law. And we say, we are going to deny your license. I want to be clear, that is not a unilateral decision Eagle can make. If we are going to deny a license for a facility that's already operating, that facility gets the opportunity to take that action before a judge. Okay, so we would have to make the determination that a facility is not capable or willing to comply with the law, and then we would initiate that judicial process to have their license taken away.
Okay, I just want to do a quick time check, Tracy and everyone here. It's about 7 o'clock. I said we start our public hearing at 7 o'clock. We got lots of questions here today. I totally understand that. I'm gonna take a couple more. Then I'll tell you what's gonna happen is that we got to start the hearing that's when we take your official comment and we need to hear those, okay? If you have a question while we're doing that, this team is gonna be back there and they can answer all your questions one-on-one. So if you got something that's waiting, you can't ask it in front of this group, that's fine. They're gonna be out there so you can talk to them one-on-one as well. So we'll take a couple more questions, then we need to move into our hearing phase. Because you remember, we did a whole Q&A session that was 3.5 hours last month, or June, sorry. Go ahead.
Hi there. There was a preliminary injunction issued by Judge Kevin Cox on August 5th, 2025, and that found that WDI's operations pose unacceptable risks, including proximity to school, residences, threats to drains and waterways, uncontrollable radon migration, lack of emergency preparedness, and irreparable health and environmental harms. Based on these findings, how does Eagle incorporate this evidence into its decision on the operating license renewal and proposed expansion?
Yeah. So the department is required to take into consideration what is in current legislation. So Judge Cox's, which he did make a ruling, that is a judicial ruling. The department cannot modify a draft license based on that ruling. That would then have to be put into legislation. If it's put into legislation, the department will absolutely comply and reevaluate like appropriately. But at the moment, his ruling does not actually affect the draft license.
It's also just worth noting real quick for you, because it's a legitimate question, of course, is the ruling also stays in play too, right? So the facility has to comply with both. So if a license is issued and there's also a ruling that says the facility has to comply with something in that judge's ruling, they have to comply with both of those, okay? So just to clarify that. That's fine.
Okay, can independent testing be done?
Can you clarify?
Of the area?
Do you mean like by the department or by the public or?
By the public, if they have the instruments or like we have a lab.
There's nothing stopping the public from taking samples or testing off-site off the property's boundary, right?
Okay,
right. Because that's legally their property that, you would have to have their permission.
All right, at what level do you consider, are they going to consider it safe? Like how many counts per minute?
So when you say counts per minute, I'm stretching here and assuming you're talking about radiation monitoring, correct? Yeah, so the facility does on-site monitoring. If there was interest, and people wanted to do their own, there's nothing that stops people from doing their own in your own backyard. There are many people that do that.
What is the level that they are going to say is safe before like they warn the public or something?
Oh, as far as like if there were an exposure, yeah, so the question, thanks. Yeah, the question is like, what's a threshold or what's a number that maybe the public would be notified of, right? Yeah. Am I getting that correctly? Yeah, that's a good question. So this particular facility is required to report annually. So the data is always reported to the department annually. We've published the latest one for 2024. It's available online. So you have all of it up through the last calendar year. If there's a release though, that would be done through the contingency plan. In other words, those emergency plans to notify the public if there's something of concern.
Okay, what type of instruments do they typically test with? Do they have something that like identifies the isotopes? Because there's thousands of them.
There are indeed thousands of them. Yes, that's absolutely correct. And so the monitoring that's done at this site is not what's called like real time and maybe what you're thinking where it's taking a measurement continuously and like spitting out a result all the time, okay? What has to happen for these is because the numbers of the values that we're looking for are so low, the sample media has to be taken back to a specialized laboratory. So they're actually utilizing things to either pump air into a filter and then that filter sent in for air monitoring. They're actually collecting a water sample and sending that into a lab for monitoring. So they have to be done in a separate laboratory environment to look for those values.
All right, thanks. We got one more question here. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for answering these very challenging questions. It's very complex. I'm State Rep Reggie Miller. And again, I want to also thank you for working with the residents to get these questions answered. I greatly appreciate it. My question is, the Wayne Disposal, Hazardous Landfill, and the American Center, can you step up for a minute? The American Center for Mobility, the proposed data center will be a mile or two from each other. And my concern is this will create unique concentrated cluster of high risk and high demand infrastructure in one corridor. So you add the airport on top of that, and you have, it's compromised. Eagle has acknowledged that this area is disproportionate. Industrial stress, we know that. The data center introduces a whole new dimension here with new emissions from diesel, backup generators, increased water withdrawals, and stormwater runoff risk. So together with landfill leachate, airport operations, freeway traffic, this adds to air and water impacts around the community, Bella Lake and Huron River. And then you add this public safety risks that are involved, because now you have overlapping risks with public safety, because now you have the data center and the landfill, and that's an issue. So I hope you take all of this into consideration with the combined hazardous waste handling at WDI and the diesel fuel storage at a data center creates, again, situations that could be incidents and scenarios. Local emergency responders would face compound risks of chemical spills, generator fires, or emergencies that exceed capacity. So I hope you're considering all this. And then you add the economic and land use conflicts. You put in a data center and you got a landfill that's how many stories high? How does that look? How will that affect property values and quality of life? Please take that under consideration, because it's community equity in the long run. And corporations benefit from this, but how do we protect us from this? Because a data center, it has its own challenges. It takes up water and electricity. That puts a burden on all of us, but then you add this expansion. I think it's too much of a burden on our community, and I hope that you'll consider not being this.
Did you got one more over there?
Yeah, I got a couple. I got one.
Okay, we got to do one more, then we got to move on. I'm
Jim,
sorry.
can we call it
9, 10
7:15?
minutes after.
Jim. Can we call it 7:15?
If you want to call 7:15, we'll take 5 more minutes for questions.
Does that
That's
work for
fine.
folks?
Yeah, that's fine.
7:15 on Q&A.
I will just remind everybody that we're here, we have to be out of here by 9 o'clock. So I want to make sure we get all your comments. Okay, thank you.
Okay, somebody over here, I remember you brought up the meeting that we had in June.
Yes.
With EGLE.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up, because at that meeting, EGLE confirmed that WDI, they confirmed that the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit does not require any radiological testing or treatment prior to discharge to the cork drain. Now that's important to me. EGLE shared results just today from water discharge to the cork drain, and preliminary results indicate no elevated presence of radionuclides. However, radionuclides were in fact detected. So who lied to me?
So it's a good question, and you're right. So what was discussed with an additional community engagement meeting, the department, committed, right? We said we would go out and sample the post leachate, right? Remember that's that water material.
Stormwater runoff, the quick drain,
Um,
quick drain.
no, so what we, oh,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you for the correction. Yeah, so the NIPD's permit, not the IPP, correct, thank you. The NIPD's permit was sampled. And the analysis results are all below what are called the monitoring thresholds. Okay, so it doesn't say that nothing was detected, right? There are naturally occurring radionuclides in all over our environment. So to say we will never detect anything is not a reasonable thing for me to tell you. Okay, what I can tell you.
These were elevated radionuclides, and this
well,
came
so
from a specific test done by NOAA in Ann Arbor, the Great Lakes Research Laboratory.
okay, so if you're referring to a different result, I'm interested in hearing more about that. I'm not familiar with what you're referring to.
See, the current administration, when they let go of these employees in Millings, they screwed up because people like me who have the money to employ them now employ them. So
I'm genuinely interested in knowing more about what you're talking about, because we did a NIPD's permit sampling, right? The publication, we paid for Rush, right? So we utilized the TNORM funds that the department gets to expedite the result for that so that we had some preliminary results ahead of this meeting, right? So we published those preliminary results ahead of this meeting so that we could get those in your hands and be transparent about that, right? Instead of waiting for them to be finalized and reviewed and the lab to have additional testing time, we said, hey, look, here's the first thing we know and this is what we have. But acknowledging they are preliminary, right? They're doing an additional testing technique, which allows us to better look at some of the, what is uranium-235, which is one that came back above the detection limit, the ability to see it, which is different than the protective health limit. It is well below what we consider the protective health limit.
When the curb drain literally releases directly into an impoundment that leads to the Great Lakes, where is all the sediment from that going to go? Into the impoundment. It's those are gonna increase. Anything that we have going into that impoundment is going to increase. That's what's not being mentioned here. Anything radionuclide wise that settles to the bottom of that water as sediment is going to increase the level of radionuclides within that water. There's no, you can't debate that.
If you're referring to the sedimentation basins,
they're not just, it's not just a sedimentation basin, it's an entire lake.
Okay.
That leads to the rest of the Huron River watershed.
I think maybe
leads to Lake Erie.
So this is something maybe we should talk about more to better understand, because I think for us, when you refer to sedimentation, we specifically, in our minds, right, are thinking of the sedimentation basins that are on the facility site. Right. Okay, those are utilized as an engineering control mechanism.
No, I understand that. But now we already know that radionuclides have obviously come from that property and been let into the Gorge Drain.
So again, I would like to better understand.
There have been leaks on this property in the past. We know that. So not one person, I'm an engineer, not one person in this room can tell me with an absolute concrete guarantee that they will not have leaks in the future.
No, and so I'm not telling you that. I'm not trying to, convince you of something.
Why would a densely populated area?
So again, like we said earlier, the department doesn't decide the siting location, right? The land, we don't pick where a location is for a landfill. But like I said, I'd like to better understand.
But you have the power to stop it, as does the governor of this state. Now, if you fail us and the governor fails us, then myself and another few individuals that are within this room have no other, we have no alternative but to go to Washington, D.C.
No, it's called Aaron Brockovich lawsuit. We're going after everybody.
Well, how about we do this? Do we have an answer for this, or did you want to address it out there?
Yeah, a little bit more dialogue.
Here's the actual question. Has the WDI NPDES permit been updated as part of WDI's draft application to address this concern, the concern of the leak obviously leaking, and require radiological testing and treatment prior to discharge into the Gorge Drain? And based on the testing results, we, everybody in this room, every resident within this township, every resident within the city, would most definitely request that at the very least, EGLE, Eagle, you're supposed to protect us, not them. That you put in that. Taxpayer be paying taxes to pay all of your salaries, and then have to take money out of my own pocket to have individual testing done to prove you wrong.
So I want to take, I think you covered a lot of issues, and I want to take like a brief couple, and then we can talk later on or make public comment. I hear you. And I understand that. Tracy's gonna.
I'd like to address a couple of the comments here.
Yeah.
So the question really is whether, we talked about how all that water leaves the site, right? There's two ways that water leaves the site, one into the sewer, one into the cork drain, both through treatment. I understand. Let me try to address your question, sir. Let me try to address your question, okay? I would love to. So the water that leaves the site that goes into the cork drain, you are right, the permit for it does not currently require monitoring. Give me a second, sir, okay? The permit does not currently require monitoring for radionuclides. We heard that comment, okay? We went out, we had that alcohol sample. Those are the results that you have, okay? The next thing we need to do is take this public comment, take these results once they're finalized and give that consideration. Talk to our water quality folks about whether or not it would be appropriate to incorporate that into the NPDES permit, or whether or not that's a thing we can incorporate into our license. I want to tell you guys a little bit about how those water permits work, though, okay? So when you sample water, you can find all kinds of things in it, right? Whether you're in a landfill, whether you're in a creek, whether you're in a sewage treatment plant, you're going to find all kinds of things. The way that the water program decides what needs to be in those permits, they look at the levels that were detected, and they do a calculation that they say, is there a reasonable potential for those levels to exceed protective criteria? Okay, so we don't sample for everything everything that every lab sample that could be sampled. We say, what are the things that could be present above thresholds of concern? Okay, I think this is a really valid question, and what I'm committing to you is looking at it more. There's nothing more we can tell you tonight besides those preliminary test results that we have. But again, the permit is on public comment through October 31st, and this is an issue we are looking at. That is what I can tell you. Yeah.
Will your results be finalized by October 31st then?
I expect.
I can,
so
so that, just to give you a little bit of detail on the NIPD's permit that was requested and we sampled for, we rushed a piece of that sample because technically speaking, the ability to measure it is fast enough to be done. The other one requires 15 days. And so we're about 5 more days out to give you kind of a rough time estimate before those results will be available. And this is being conducted by a third-party lab, not the state's not doing this analysis. This is a third-party facility. So that's why there's just like a literal technical limitation on how quickly that can be done. Okay, but it would be done within about a week or so. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And so that's what, the department as a collective is committed to trying to be, I'll be frank, personally, I'm not a fan of the FOIA system, right? And this is gonna sound really weird because it takes up a lot of our time too. And it's like fulfilling these requests, it's time consuming. And so what's easier for us is just to put it on a website and be like, yeah, here you go, right? Like, so it's not that I don't find it important, it's because we do find it so important that information's available. It'll just be put on the website. The preliminary results are already there. But yeah, Janine, did you have a follow-up?
Can we go to a final question from
Go ahead,
Janine, and then
Janine.
Yeah, we need to move on.
I just want to make a comment and thank the EGLA for those test results. Just want to let the community know they did meet with us for a half day. And we went through it, and this was a concern I raised from our community, and they did proactively agree to do the testing because we requested to add them to the permit. And as Tracy said, if they have a reason to believe that there is detection, then they will add it to the permit. So I'm really happy that we are, working towards a relationship with the EGLA, and they are listening to our feedback because that one is really an important one in our community. we live and play and have our children in the lake, and we want to know that it's safe. So, you know, my request is, since we do see a detection, we can't know unless we collect the data on a regular basis if that levels are changing. So from my perspective, I just want data.
So I'm glad you raised it, Janine, because real quick, before you guys get to the formal period, I think it's worth addressing, and thanks for being here. That it's not something that's unreasonable for us to commit to a more frequent sampling. The NIPD's sampling, right, that National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, right, that's what NIPD stands for, is not very frequent necessarily, and may not appease or be a comfortable frequency for folks. So it's something I think that we can talk about more about what is an appropriate frequency to continue to say, hey, look, we're below that. Let's continue to ensure that we're below that, right? It may not mean daily, right? But what is a meaningful frequency for that to work for the community? So thank you.
Okay.
Is this something we can commit to and continue and doing more testing later on? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I personally, if I'm in this role, will commit to that.
Okay. Thanks, team. We now have to move on to our public comment period, which is where you make comments to us on things you might want to see change in the draft permit. So what we're going to do now is make sure if you have a comment you want to make, fill out one of these comment cards. And what we'll do, they're going to bring it up to me. I'm going to call your name off, and you're going to come up and make your comment. I'm going to have Kevin Bott come up here and make his statement. Thank you. And if anybody has any more questions, our team that was up here is moving out to the hallway. Feel free to move out there and ask any of your questions that you might have. We're going to be here until 9 o'clock, so we're here to help answer your questions.
So I'm confused. I thought it was like a recorded hearing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's here. I'm confused about the.
Yeah, we're going to go over all the hearing
We have
process too.
We have a live stream that's running right now, so people can make a comment online to us, but then also we will post. We've been recording this entire program at 6 o'clock, so we'll post that.
No, it's not questions, it's here. Jim, can I get the mic just for a minute?
Yeah, sorry.
Can I have the mic?
It's like a statement.
All right, folks, just while we transition, I want to address Janine's question. So the question is like format, what are we doing right now? Okay, so we did the question and answer time. And this is when we're moving into formal hearing. So this is where we hear from you. All of these comments are recorded for the record. We will address every comment that we receive in our process. But if you feel like you want an answer tonight, right? Like I know how frustrating it is to come up here and say, well, what about this? And then us say, well, we're gonna address that in the document that we write in 6 weeks. Like that's right. What I'm saying is we have a dozen or more staff in the back of the room. If instead of sitting in here and listening to all of the formal comments that are being made, if you would like to take this opportunity to go talk to our inspector and say, what do you do during an inspection? You wanna talk to our geologist, you wanna talk to the engineer, please take that time, feel free, stand up, go back there, talk to those folks, come back in here, make your comment. This is the time, so Cecilia and I are the formal decision makers on these licensing actions. So we're gonna sit up here and hear your public comments, but those folks are still available for back and forth questions, okay? You should stay, this is not questions, this is statement, this is formal comment for the record. If you have questions you want answered, feel free to go back and talk to staff.
All right, without further ado, I'm going to get moving here on the hearing statement. Welcome everybody. Good evening. This is now the public hearing on the draft hazardous waste management facility operating license, or from here forth, hazardous waste license, and the draft Toxic Substances Control Act approval, or TSCA approval, for the disposal of polychlorinated biphenyls, also known as PCB waste, at Wayne Disposal. The facility is located at 49350 North I-94 Service Drive in Belleville, Michigan. My name is Kevin Bott. I'm the supervisor for the Permitting Program Support Unit within the Materials Management Division of EGLE. I'll be the hearings officer this evening. With me is Tracy Texcometti, the acting director for the Materials Management Division within Eagle, and Cecilia Alford, the acting division director for the Land Chemicals and Redevelopment Division within the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA Region 5. Tracy Texcometti, as you mentioned, is the decision maker for the draft hazardous waste license, and Cecilia Alford is the decision maker for the draft TSCA approval. This evening, we want to hear all of your comments on the draft hazardous waste license and the draft TSCA approval. So for a little bit of background on why we're having this public meeting, Wayne Disposal submitted a hazardous waste license application on November 5th of 2021. Eagle and EPA conducted administrative completeness reviews and extensive technical reviews to evaluate compliance with Part 111, Hazardous Waste Management of Michigan's Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, Public Act 451 and its rules, the Toxic Substances Control Act, or TSCA, and 40 Code of Regulations, Part 761. Eagle and EPA provided Wayne Disposal comments regarding their technical reviews, and Wayne Disposal subsequently revised their application, resulting in a technically adequate determination that came out on August 14th of 2025. On June 26th, 2025, and then just prior to this meeting tonight, Eagle and EPA held public informational meetings to answer questions from the public about the facility, the draft hazardous waste license, and the draft TSCA approval. The draft hazardous waste license before you today includes standard conditions as well as facility-specific conditions such as various environmental monitoring programs, the waste receipt procedures, landfill design, specific operational protocols, among other things. The draft hazardous waste license would authorize an increased landfill capacity from 22.45 million cubic yards to 27.65 million cubic yards, and would permit the use of 2 areas on site to store up to 2,146 cubic yards of waste in containers prior to disposal within the landfill. The draft TSCA approval establishes conditions for managing and disposing of PCBs and refers to the conditions in the draft hazardous waste license. So I'd now like to begin the formal public hearing at 7:27 here on September 18th, 2025. The intent of the hearing is to obtain public comment on the proposed draft hazardous waste license and the draft TSCA approval. Unlike the previous public meetings, as mentioned, this is not a question and answer period. This is for comments only. All in-person attendees are asked to complete attendance cards if they've not done so already, which Jim had pointed out, and are also at the back table. If you wish to speak, please indicate so on the card by checking the appropriate box. The information on the cards will be used to update our Eagle facility mailing list, so you'll hear about the facility in the future. Virtual participants will have an opportunity to speak after the in-person attendees have all provided their comment. Their registration information will be used to update the Eagle facility mailing list. And the Eagle online moderator will identify those persons wishing to provide comments online. We do ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We will have a timer that's up here so that you can see how much time has passed. Speakers are asked to state and spell their name before providing comment, and provide a written copy, which is also on paper at the back table there, of your comment if possible, just so that we have it. The hearing will be formally closed after all participants indicating they wish to provide comment have done so. We would now like to begin accepting public comments into the record, and I will here pass it off to Jim.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so if you've never done a public comment before for us, we do this a lot, and it's basically you're going to come up and we're just going to listen to you. So it's not really an interaction. So we're going to listen to you. It's comments that you might have on this draft permit. So a lot of you hopefully learned a lot tonight and may have comments for us. Just a reminder, I grabbed several more comment cards here. I've got a stack of them here. If you want to make a comment, you change your mind, you want to do it at some point, just give it to the team at the back table there, Elizabeth and Tiana. They're going to bring it up to me, and I will take them and I'll read your name off. We also have about 35 people online tonight. For those people that are online listening in, if you would like to make a comment, you can type it into the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar, write the word comment, then type your comment in, and you can submit it that way as well. That's just another way you can do it. And just a reminder, all this meeting is being recorded, including the public comment. It will be posted online on our YouTube channel over the next couple days. And yeah, so if you wanna, it will send the link out to everyone who registered or attended tonight, as long as you put your email down there for us. Okay, when I call your name, like Kevin said, I'll also tell you who's on deck to speak next. So you kind of work your way up to the microphone, kind of helps us move things along. Everybody has 3 minutes, 1 comment apiece. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to make additional comments longer than 3 minutes, or you think of something else you want to add on, you can submit it in writing using the forms that are back there that Tiana and Elizabeth have, or you can also scan that code, submit it that way as well. So a lot of different ways to make your comment. And oh, one more thing, if you have any trouble making your way up to the mic, no problem. Just raise your hand, flag me down when I call your name, and Sam here is going to grab the mic and come over to you. Okay? All right. So we'll start out with our first name. That's Bradley Hoth. And after Bradley is George Miller. So Bradley, if you're here, you can make your way up to the front. Bradley. All right, this happens sometimes. All right, so after George Miller, is George Miller here to make a comment? All right, after George is Kathy Brandt. And George, also make sure you guys restate your name in case I mess it up, because I might do that. And if you're with any association or affiliation, make sure you let us know that. Okay, George, go ahead.
George Miller. I have a letter here from Eagle, your department, generally speaking. But in 3 minutes, I'll make sure I get it. In March of 23, I'd like to know some of this waste is leachate caught there and be cleaned up at the site. Then it goes down, and you're believing the trash haulers, should I say. Their word, I'd like to know where you're not testing it when it leaves the site. I'll give you an example. Years ago, a sanitary landfill in Canton, it's Haggerty and approximately Haggerty in Michigan. The leachate goes over the Haggerty Road in Michigan, and from there to the sewer plant. It's never checked. You guys never check it before it hits the sewer plant. Everything hinges on that guy at the sewer plant. You're taking the word, the waste haulers. If this basement, the gentleman is talking about where they're storing it, if that overflows, whether it's a 300-year lane and back, I was down at the sewer plant, they couldn't handle it down there. This place can't handle it. Guess what? They opened the gates and they let the Detroit River have it. Vikings, the judge, that's what happened down there. So I'd like to know things that haven't been found. It's a little bit different now. When you come in, outfit does, whether they bring it in, you guys test it. That's another question I have. Why you tested at the gate? You didn't do that years ago. Now we're going to do a drug test for the chemical on the paperwork. And you go to cell 13, it's supposed to be there. It's not there. I've asked why, like at a bank, global positioning on a camera, telling the cell forward latitude, and it's right there. You should be able to do a core test 5 or 10 years and find out what's in that cell. And that stuff never did come up. It's been 40 years according to the paperwork. And we got to believe these people. I'd like to know, other than sanitary landfills, once they're closed, you're talking vertical. Once a dump is closed, it's closed. You guys are quoting me the law. That's it. You can't, or it's leaking. So there's a problem, one of the two. Why is it going vertical? Why? Or maybe you guys have been told to try to put it on a dump. Once it's closed, that's it, unless it's leaking.
All right, thanks for your comments. Next up is Kathy Brandt. Then after Kathy is Anthony Gibson. So go ahead and you can adjust the microphone too if you need to.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Brandt. I'm filing a formal objection to the proposal of the expansion of the
You gotta step up a little bit.
I am here to demand an immediate delay in action on this license. This isn't about routine technicalities. It's about fundamental legal flaw in how this project is being overseen. The host community agreement between WDI and Van Buren Township contains a provision that legally obligates the township to support the landfill. It also threatens its funding of the township objects or communications with Eagle without WDI's prior consultation. This agreement creates a de facto conflict of interest, presenting a significant financial distinction that when functionally restricts the township and its ability to act as an independent public advocate. This is a direct documented conflict of interest that compromises the integrity of the entire regulatory process. Worse yet, a proportion of the money funds the township Department of Public Safety, creating a clear financial incentive to avoid objective oversight. This agreement also lacks basic transparency, preventing public access to critical information and shutting the community out of the process. Approving this license renewal would be irresponsible of the Eagles' duty. It would be a signal that the private contract can supersede the public's right to know and government's ability to protect the residents. I urge you to uphold the statutory obligations, delay this license, and conduct a full independent investigation. And I also want to say that, not directed to you guys, but the EPA in East Palestine, Ohio, the residents have been telling the EPA that they are getting sick. But the EPA, they are siding with Norfolk Southern, and they are literally telling them what not to test for in the ground. So they're poisoning the community. They know it, and they're not doing anything. They're letting these people get sick. Now I think the government's gonna give them $10 million to monitor how sick these people are gonna get. Instead of helping the community, they're gonna monitor the community. If something happens here and we need the first responders there are getting sick. And you know what they're telling them? They're not doing anything for them either. Do you think that in this community, our first responders are really trained to take care of a toxic plume, a train derailment like we had, and a burn, what are they gonna do? They are not trained in this. So they literally are getting sick. The people at the dump sites get sick. Like, are they watching them 10 years, 20 years down the road? So one other thing, so anybody here?
Okay, if you just wrap up your comment, please.
In the Facebook comment, Michigan Against Atomic Waste, everybody needs to give to them. We can have a third-party testing and have our own testing because the government, Eagle, sorry, they're not out for our best interest. So if we get into this nonprofit organization and give to them, we can actually make a difference because they're the only ones that are gonna watch and make sure that communities are not getting sick.
Okay,
And
Ms.
thank
Brandt.
you guys for all your help.
Thank you. All right, next up is Anthony Gibson. Then after Anthony Gibson is David Bitterbender. Anthony, go ahead.
Anthony Gibson. I've lived 1 mile east of this facility for 40 years. This morning when I came out of my house, I could smell the fumes from that facility in my area. And now I know that's from the Wayne disposal, the treatment plant, but I can smell that this morning and I'm getting tired of smelling that when I walk out of my house. Also, I want to point out that quite a few years ago, when this facility came to the township for their current expansion, they told the people, this is going to be the last expansion that we need. We will have plenty of capacity to do for many, many years. And now they're coming back and wanting to go higher. I also have concerns about the weight of the amount of refuge or material that's going into this facility. That when this current cells were designed, they were designed to a certain technical standard. But now we're going to be putting more weight on that, which I don't believe that was considered into that when they designed this facility. So where does that stuff go? It's going to go into our groundwater. And where does that groundwater go? Into Belleville Lake. Where does Belleville Lake go? Huron River and into the Great Lakes. And as we know, the Great Lakes hold a vast percentage of the fresh water in the world, not just in America, in the world. And I don't want to see that happening. So we need to take a look at what's going on at this facility, the amount of trucks coming in and out of there. There have been issues in the past where trucks have spilled loads going on the road in the facility along the I-94 North Service Drive. I remember that quite a few years ago, and it wasn't caught right away. And it bothers me that Eagle and WDI do not have to tell the residents of any environmental concerns if they have in their testing wells or any environmental issues. I would like to know that because I live, like I said, 1 mile east of this facility. I am downwind of this facility, and enough's enough. This facility needs to be closed. Thank you.
David Bitterbender, and then after that is State Representative Reggie Miller.
My name is David Bittenbender. I'm here today to request the immediate intervention of the United States Environmental Protection Agency in this matter. The Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy is currently considering the license renewal and expansion for the waste disposal landfill. Eagle's own internal documents confirm that our community is an environmental justice area. However, they have stated that they lack the legal authority to require the polluter to address these findings. This is a clear failure of a state delegated program. While the state can certainly identify a community disproportionately burdened by industrial pollution, its regulatory framework is unable to offer any meaningful protection to we the citizens. We believe this is an inadequate execution of a delegated federal program and a failure to fulfill the core mission of environmental protection. We respectfully but firmly demand that the EPA initiate an immediate investigation into Michigan's legal and procedural limitations. We ask that you halt any further action on this license renewal until you have determined whether Michigan's program is adequately addressing federal EJ principles. Our community should not have to fight a battle that Eagle is mandated to win. We urge you to use your authority to ensure the health and well-being of the residents of Van Buren Township, Belleville, and communities or even around. I mean, you know that we've had other communities around as well. But we urge you to fight this battle. We urge you to use your authority to ensure that the health and well-being of the residents within these communities are not sacrificed due to a legal technicality. As I stated earlier, I am going to Washington, D.C. So are other members here. We are going to Washington, D.C. to request a federal intervention regarding the inadequate handling of the environmental justice and concerns within this township and statewide. If our governor is failing me, then I have no other alternative but to go to Congress. Additionally, I'm here today as a concerned constituent regarding the proposed license renewal and expansion for the Wayne disposal landfill. While Eagle's own documents confirm our community is in our environmental justice area, the agency states it lacks the legal authority to act on these findings. This renders EJ screening an empty gesture, providing no real protection to our vulnerable residents. The burden of proving harm should not fall on the public. It is the state's duty to proactively protect its citizens.
Sir, can you wrap it up?
Yeah, lastly, what I'm gonna say is, EGLE is already dealing with an issue in regards to Midland. Not one person has been made whole. They're still dealing with an issue in Flint. Not one person has been made whole. We are not gonna let anything happen in this community and then have you not allow or make anyone whole. It's not gonna happen. We will be in DC, and we'll have regulators from DC come in.
Thank you, Mr. Benbeth. Thank you. Okay, next up is State Representative Reggie Miller and then Gail Bellamy.
Hi, everyone. I've been here for almost 3 decades. I'm here as a friend or neighbor and also your state representative. And I'm going to be quick because I know you're timing me. But, you know, we're here tonight because of this expansion. And this isn't just about Eagle assisting with applications through the process, calling it compliance. This is whether state agencies, Eagle, are willing to stand up and protect our residents from big business. When Eagle says we have to issue permits if the company meets the requirement, that sounds so simple. Let's check a box. One after the other, but the boxes on their forms don't measure the horrible smell. It doesn't measure the cancer risk. It doesn't measure the risk when these trucks are coming from all over. You gave a great presentation, absolutely. But you don't have to say yes. And we know that. You have a choice. And I want to be clear. With the power to say no, which you should, but I'm going to prove why. In 2020, the Sierra Club, the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition, and the Detroit residents filed civil rights complaints against Eagle over a hazardous waste facility in their neighborhood. It took over 4 years, and that project went through anyway. But Eagle had to make concessions. And that case ended in a settlement just last year. And under that agreement, Eagle is now required to deny any hazardous waste license or renewal if it will cause unlawful impacts on human health or environment. If Eagle can make the commitment to Detroit, I'm asking you to make the commitment here. And to Janine's point about testing and working with this, yes, Eagle agreed to do more testing, absolutely, and I'm grateful for Janine who pushed that. But let's be clear, a handful of tests are not a substitute for long-term responsibility and accountability. Those little trinkets of monitoring do not equal this landfill being crammed down our throats. Our community deserves real protections, not token gestures meant to keep us quiet. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next up is Gail Bellamy, and then after that is James Klenzinski. Gail Bellamy here. All right, thank you. And then James Klenzinski. After James is Rhonda Cerrone.
My name's James Chazinski. I probably didn't write it properly. The dump's been here, as you guys said, for decades, okay? Well, decades ago when the dump started, it didn't have the population and we didn't know what we know now with all the chemicals that come into this dump. The population in Van Buren Township alone is 100 times larger than what it was before back in the 60s. And it's still growing. And with Belleville Lake being across the expressway, the quart drain that is dumped into Belleville Lake, the possibility of risks are astounding. I've been in this community my whole life. My family's been in this community their whole life. Since the 30s, if not farther. We need to take control. We need to downsize. Yes, if they pass all their regulations are good, they meet all the requirements, yes. They can, you guys say yes, they can grow, but that's not right. You know, there's other places and it comes down to money. And that's the biggest thing. They're making more money on bringing this stuff in. They could take it other places, but they'd have to pay more money. That's why they want it shipped here. That's why WDI wants it. That's why they want the expansion. Yes, the world goes around on money, but it's not always for the greater good. And that's what we need to look at, is the greater good. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Rhonda Cerrone, and then after that is Janine Ripley.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Cerrone. I'm going to talk really fast because I got a lot to say in 3 minutes.
I'm here to formally object to the Wayne County disposal landfill expansion and demand for an immediate delay. My objection is based on the critical failure by Eagle to account for foreseeable natural disasters which pose an unmitigated threat to public health. The proposed expansion dramatically increases the volume of the hazardous waste in the site, is not designed to withstand events common to within our region, like tornadoes, floods. A protected liner system ability to handle these threats directly compromise its ability and others. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent. I was born and raised in Midland. I grew up on Wixom Lake. The dams broke, shit happens. Dow Chemical, grew there, lots of family members live there, still work there, retired. There's a high case of MS and other neurological diseases. I worked at the Michigan Sugar Company right out of college. There was a big, huge molasses tank that completely failed and 25,000 gallons or more. It was a lot of things that I was responsible for handling. It was a defective weld in the tank. There's so many other things. We pretend. I worked for the railroad for 16 years. I know what demurrage is when all those cars were not allowed. You know how much money it was costing them? Probably $300 to $600 per day demurrage per car for not putting them in there. I've also seen natural disasters with rail cars. Nobody is immune to not having mistakes, failures. That liner, you know it's gonna fail in the next however many years. So there's a lot of things. So I'll get back off my tangent. For example, geosynthesis clay liner. That's what I was talking about. It's highly vulnerable to kinetic impact of debris carried by tornado. Conversely, compacted clay liner, and I also worked in bentonite clay and all this other stuff. I had handled all kinds of different salt, everything you can imagine I handled with the railroad and called on these companies. It was a Fortune 250. Guess what? We don't do what's best for our clients and everybody. We do what's best for the stockholders and shareholders. We're sick of big business now. I'm now a full-time realtor. I'm so glad I don't have to work in the corporate environment because it sucks, it's stupid, and it's not for the people. So we could still fall in prolonged flooding. This creates a no-win situation for over 360,000 people living within a 10-mile radius. A single catastrophic event, like a tornado, a flood, if our exact same dams fail, we're gonna have the same shit that happened up in Wixom, Midland, Sanford, and all that stuff. And guess what's gonna happen to that landfill when that flood comes? All that stuff's gonna be shooshing, and we're gonna be drinking and stepping in that crap. So we must ask, why are we trusting you guys, the same agencies that's failed Flint, Midland, and to simply follow the checklist here? Furthermore, this site is only funded for 30 years. How can Eagle in good faith? But you get my drift. I don't know if I have to keep going on.
All right.
I think I said.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So under Michigan law, 299.9703, Wayne Disposal is required to provide financial assurance for 30 years of monitoring and maintenance after closure. After that, Republic can legally walk away, even though uranium-238 TNORM component has a half-life of 4.468 billion years, meaning risks to groundwater and public health last far beyond the 30-year limit. So after 30 years, our taxpayers will be responsible for maintaining the environmental monitoring, the landfill liners, the stormwater controls, and the mechanical systems. And also, RCRA 40 CFR 264.210 allows states to extend post-closure care requirements to protect human health and the environment. So my request is that Eagle consider using this clause that I just cited to extend the post-closure monitoring to reflect the time frame of the uranium-238, which will essentially radiate beyond humanity. Secondly, I would like to recommend that the EGLE consult with the Attorney General Office about whether this permit renewal should be suspended or modified while Belleville versus Wayne Disposal is pending, given the court's finding of irreparable public harm. Thank you.
I forgot to say who was on next. Sorry about that. Richard Harrison is up next. Then after Richard is Elizabeth Fuller.
No, this is like a bad movie. This is like a bad movie. The Egyptians had the Valley of the Kings. Everybody who lives in this area has the Valley of the landfills. You can go south, you can go north, you can go west, and you can go east. And you're gonna go by a mountain landfill. Why here? 365,000 people within 10 miles. And we want to go from 22.45 million cubic yards to 27.65 million cubic yards. I think the inmates are running a funny farm. It just doesn't make sense to me. I've been here 77 years. I grew up about 10 miles from here. And who'd ever dream that we're sitting here and talking about increasing the landfill when we ought to be decreasing? That's all the comments I have.
Okay, next up is Elizabeth Fuller, and then after Elizabeth is Kathleen Welsh.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Fuller, and I may be uninformed, but it sounds like the landfill self-monitors itself and that the people from Eagle go in 4 times a year. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but it just seems to me like even in a restaurant, they have surprise visits, surprise people that come in and check them when nobody's around. And it just seems like when people's lives are at stake, that it should be either an outside monitoring company that's doing the monitoring, or it should be when you go in 4 times a year that they don't know when you're coming in, so that you can get samples that they aren't aware or they just don't know when you're coming, right? So that's really, it just seems to me like the community is very, very concerned. And if you're gonna approve this, and we have no control over that, the very least you could do is find a way to reassure us that this is not just another big company that's able to falsify records and put our lives at risk.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Kathleen Welsh, and after that was going to be Jesse Forcione. But
I'm waiting until I get 3 minutes.
oh, I'll take extra time.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. I have a concern about, sorry.
Yeah.
I have a concern about corporations who, and I'm not anti-corporations, but corporations who have the ability within the lifetime that we're talking about, they'll have a responsibility for simply selling the Wayne disposal. If in 8 years, whoever owns Wayne disposal, because I know you said some other companies are all the same, they start selling these off. And I know she's been beating a lot today about ADM failure of the Tittabawassee River, but it comes back to us. That what happened is that dam, as you sure you know, was owned by a company that Miracle didn't have any money. So when the state of Michigan says fix that dam, they went, yeah, right. My concern is, as it gets closer and closer to when WDI will not be expandable anymore, that they sell it, right? What are you able to do? And I know you have to work within the law, but what are you able to do to make them pony up? Like, how about a bond for the next, what, 4.5 million years, I think it was, we got to worry about. But what can you do so we're not left holding the bag to clean this up? Because something will eventually happen. There will be an earthquake. We have happened in Michigan. There will be issues, and I think we should have a way to make them put the money up. Make them pay a bond. Let's see what a bonding company would think the risk would be over the next, what, 40 years you're talking, 10 years, and then put stuff in it, and then 30 more years monitoring. I'd like to see what WDI had to pay a bonding company to get a bond to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, Jesse Forcioni, and then after that is Anne Marie Stevens.
Hello, I'm Jesse Forcioni, been a member of the community for about 25 years now. Eagle, EPA, and all their agencies involved are currently unable to remedy the current PCB, mercury, and PFAS contaminations in Belleville Lake. These past unaccounted for disasters currently make it dangerous to eat the fish and drink the water. Recreation, enjoying our natural resources should not cause us to get cancer. Why should we trust your agency's ability to safeguard us moving forward when you are already failing us? Not one company should be getting paid to pollute. The discharge of all toxic or dangerous substances in any body of Michigan's waterways should be outlawed.
Thank you. Okay, Anne Marie Stevens, and then Jean Watts.
Good evening. My name is Anne Marie Stevens. I'm here today to voice a formal and urgent objection to the proposed 220-foot high increase in the waste disposal landfill. The proposed heights are far exceeding our local 80-foot zoning limit, while states and federal regulations may be cited to preempt our local laws. I urge you to consider the broader public interest and the principle of your decision. A permanent structure of this immense size would be constant and demonstrated visual nuisance, along with a health and safety nuisance from everything that would drain off. It is already a prominent and ugly eyesore visible from as far as St. Joe's Hospital when you look out the window. That's what you can see is our landfill. And it already is a blight to our community. It would be a permanent, detrimental, and destructive object into our quality and community of life, safety, and health, and it will impact us forever. Eagle's mission is to protect Michigan's environment and public health. Allowing this structure that is so clearly in conflict of our interest and community well-being and your mission statement is a violation of the spirit of the mission, and it's a betrayal of our public and everything that you're entrusted to protect. I formally demand that you deny this proposal height increase for the WDI landfill, acknowledging and addressing the visual impact, the health impact, our safety impact, and the nuisance it would create. This is a matter of respecting our community and prioritizing people over profits and the communities that seem to be protected by these permits. You're playing with our health and safety, and I know in your hearts, you absolutely do not believe that creating this 25-foot structure of toxic waste and atomic waste and PCBs, now that we're getting at it, I know you don't believe that this would not affect our health and our safety. And eventually over time, and I'm not worried about this 225 foot, we've had airplane crashes, we've had 7 tornadoes in the last 5 years, we have all these floodings. I really think it's going to, some natural disaster is going to take it and level it and spread it all out. And when that happens, how are you going to clean it up? How are you going to respond to us? Oops, I'm sorry, we accidentally let it get that hot. How can you possibly put money on cleaning that up and how it will affect our lives? Thank you.
Okay, Jean Watts, and then Dawn Singh.
Hello, my name is Jean Watts, and I am just going to say that we've heard a lot of technical terms and a lot of things that would challenge what we're trying to do here today. I want to say emphatically, I am against it, and I want to say why. I've lived in the community for almost 30 years, and I am a realtor, been a realtor for almost 30 years, and I have strategically planted my 2 sons. They purchased homes near me in this community. Super hard for a mother to do that, and I've done that. And I am scared because my middle son is getting ready to propose to his girlfriend, and they're going to be living in the home that he just purchased. And I'm thinking, I want healthy grandchildren. I want healthy grandchildren. I want my children to be healthy. This jeopardizes that. And not only that, this is a wonderful community. It is a diverse community, and it will affect our property value so much. So I don't have anything technical to say, except that we don't want this. Please reconsider. Please don't do this. This will change everything for us. I have lived here so long. My kids live here. My youngest son, as soon as he graduates from Western, he's gonna get a house near mom. Everybody's within a mile radius. But I want my children and our families to be safe, and for me to grow old here and everybody to enjoy this community like my husband and I have and raised our families here. And if you do this, if you vote yes for this, we won't be able to do that. We won't be able to do that. So I ask you to please, please do not do this.
Thank you. Right, Dawn Singh, and then Jessica Peterson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Singh, and I'm here to formally file a formal and urgent objection to the Wayne disposal landfill expansion. My objection is simple. Eagle has failed to protect our basic health due diligence for our community. This landfill has been operating for over 55 years, and the PCBs were introduced in 1997. Yet we have no way of knowing if it has caused cancer cluster in our community. Why? Because the host community agreement has prevented our township from transparently communicating with us about health issues. To dismiss our concerns and ask and assess that cancer in our communities can solely be attributed to proximity to the highways is reckless and unacceptable, especially without a formal study. To proceed with the expansion without a comprehensive public health investigation would be an act of gross negligence. I formally demand the Eagle, in cooperation with the Department of Health and Human Services, take the following immediate actions. First, delay all action on the WDI application until a comprehensive, independent public study can be completed. Second, initiate and fully fund a formal request to DHHS for this investigation. The burden of this vital study should not be placed on private citizens. Third, require the public disclosure of any agreement or NDAs that could impede public officials from reporting health and safety concerns. This is not about money or permits. It's a matter of life and death. And the residents of Belleville Township deserve nothing less than the full transparency in the investigation. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jessica Peterson, and then after that is Glenda Starks.
Hello, Jessica Peterson. I founded Michigan Against Atomic Waste, and I have a couple of comments. First and foremost, I really want to appreciate the woman who was here talking about her grandchildren. I don't know where she is. But I know we can only discuss technical difficulties, and since I've started on this entire journey, you guys will be able to identify the technical difficulties way more than all of us. So my biggest ask is that you guys really take into consideration the emotional situations that we might not be able to articulate the technical deficiencies, but I'm asking you for you to review them a lot more, because you're gonna be able to do that much better than us. There's a couple of things I've been concerned with today. Part 111 of Michigan's law, MCL 324.1115 is clear. Eagle may only issue or renew a license if the facility is constructed, operated, and maintained in a way that protects human health and environment. That obligation is not limited to reviewing engineering drawings or technical deficiencies. It is a statutory duty to safeguard the public. If Eagle claims otherwise, which is what we hear all the time, you can only consider technical deficiencies. You are disregarding the plain language in Michigan law. This meeting focuses on the expansion of Wayne Disposal, yet Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant operates on the same site, handling much of the material before it reaches the landfill. How much time do I have? Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant, what we can't talk about today, is by far way worse to me than Wayne Disposal Incorporation. These facilities function as one system, but the public is told violations at Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant cannot be considered here. That leaves us with only half the picture. If the operator is allowed to blur the lines of how these facilities work together, then the community must also be allowed to evaluate them together. Otherwise, this permit review is misleading. It isolates the landfill on paper, while in reality, treatment and disposal are inseparable. It must be measured against Eagle's duty to protect human health and environment. So my ask is, instead of saying, you know what, it's complicated, it's confusing, we have one entity over here, one entity over there, if the operator can blur the lines, we have to be able to talk about those two things in unison, especially with them being in the same footprint, because ultimately the health risks are considering everything within that footprint. So my ask is that we're able to talk about Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant, the downblending that's occurring on site of that facility and then being buried, because that downblending is one of the most dangerous things, if you ask me. We're taking materials from the Manhattan Project over here, diluting them so we can legally bury them in Wayne Disposal. But we're not able to talk about that here. They deserve the full picture.
All right, Glenda Starks.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Glenda Starks. I just have a couple of things to go over. I didn't, I really don't know technical terms and everything here, but I'm concerned with the environment. I mean, Eagle has stated what they do, but the fact of the matter, they can't really cover all the contingencies for accidents and things happening. Because first of all, your EMT is not trained for certain things. You guys have not also invited the DOT, Department of Transportation, of certain things. You guys have not invited Great Lakes Water. Great Lakes are water departments here. So they can show us their testing. Also, the other thing is the statistics of cancer here in Van Buren Township, Belleville, Bull Run area has increased dramatically. I have looked it over, I've seen it. I am a victim of it as well. So I am very concerned about this with my grandchildren, my family, and the other community families here too. We have a lot of elementary schools here in the area. We have high schools in the area. We have the water here, the lakes here. So it would not be in your best interest to have this company build their services here. Have you all considered even putting a cap on their zoning as well? Because I heard someone else here say, well, they were at one site, one area, and now they're expanding even more. Well, why don't you put a cap on that? Put a stop to this. I mean, we are already going overboard with what they have now, and now they want more and more and more. So next couple of years, they'll ask for more again. So why not put a cap on this? In fact, why don't you just stop putting this in force at all? Because our families don't need this here in this community. We do have a beautiful community here. The other thing is home equity here is great, but if you guys continue with this, a lot of people are gonna be talking about moving out of this area. They're already talking about this whole situation, and they're talking about moving. And if they move, then that's a loss for you. That's not a win-win, that's a loss for you. I am a real estate investor. And Flint right now, because of the water situation in Flint, Detroit has to pay for the water, the correction for Flint right now. So the water bill is astronomical. So the other concern is, will you guys be will we be impacted by the financial struggles this will cause? This will cause financial struggles for cleanup. All sorts of concerns here going on, so please put a stop to this. Thank you.
All right, up next is Jim Polk. Jim Polk, and then after that is Colette McClinton.
My name is Jim Polk. I worked at Superior Products in Taylor for 30 years as a field service superintendent for concrete pipe and bridge beams. I did a lot of work at Wayne County Airport. I know concrete pipe. I did everything from testing to manufacturing to shipping. I moved into Van Buren Township about 8 years ago. About a year and a half or 2 years after I moved there, I live on Belleville Lake. I look out my back door and my home is on your picture. I'm directly behind the dump. I've got a broken 48-inch storm drain on my property that's 50 foot deep and 150 feet long. It drains directly into Belleville Lake. Nobody can tell me where the water's coming from. There's over 100 gallons a minute that dump into it every day. No matter what the temperature is, anything. Nobody can tell me where the water's coming from. Wayne County's supposed to come out this week to fix the pipe. I've been complaining for 6 years. It's, they were supposed to send a chemist out, check the water. They didn't do it. This is just what could happen. If that water's coming from the dump, it's directly into Belleville Lake. It's not making it because it's zero coming out of the pipe. There's 100 gallons a minute dumping in, zero coming out. It all went through my property. I lost 16 feet straight down, 20-foot tall trees in the lake. This is what's happening around the perimeter. It could happen to anybody here. It's already happened in Harbor Club next door to me. 16 feet of earth. I have pictures on my phone. I can show you trees in the water. But nobody will answer the question, where's that water coming from? It's a drop connection manhole in the front yard that drains directly into the lake. No chemist has ever come out. I've never heard from Eagle. I've had Wayne County, Solely. I've had the commissioner out there. I just talked to Reggie. I'm pissed off. I bought this property and it's falling in the lake. I put 1 million yards of fill dirt in my front yard trying to solve the problem. I made a French drain to drain the water coming out of the pipe because they can't get it to go through the pipe. I drained it out of my yard myself at my own cost. I'm retired. This place is killing me. I want to move. I hate this place. It's been nothing but a burden since day one. Nobody will answer the question.
Next up is Colette McClinton, and after that it's Jamie Finfork from Farm.
Hello, my name is Colette Clinton, and again, I have a formal objection against the expansion of this license. WDI, the annual groundwater radiological monitoring reports have shown elevated lead 210 levels in each year's annual report from 2019 to 2023. Instead of fully investigating the cause, WDI requested that background be considered and successfully petitioned EGLE in 2021 to raise the self-monitoring threshold for the lead 210.
Lead-210 is not a natural background isotope in groundwater. It is produced only in the uranium-238 decay chain, and its detection indicates contamination from radioactive material at WDI. Lead-210 is classified as human carcinogen, meaning continued elevated levels in groundwater pose a direct public health risk if migration reaches aquifers or surface waters used by nearby communities. A request that there should be evaluation by EGLA conducted off-site of WBI's property to verify true background levels of the lead-210 in the groundwater. There is concern that EGLA justify raising monitoring thresholds rather than fully investigating contamination that poses a known cancer risk to the public. We don't need to be having cancer clusters here. And it's happening. We just don't need anymore.
Jamie Finprock, and then after that is Sanjay.
Hi, I'm Jamie Finprock. I've lived in the area since 1981. Born and raised here. My parents also born and raised in the area. I'm sure a lot of people here have lived here longer than I have, and different lengths of time. But back in the day, it was a very industrial farm area, not nearly as many residents around, not as many subdivisions and neighborhoods, not heavily residential like it is now. So it's understandable that back in the 60s or 70s when this facility was brought in, that it was probably thought to not be that big of a risk or that big of a deal, or maybe even there wasn't that much opposition to it. But obviously things change, times change. We've added more residential areas, there are more people living here, there's more traffic. There's a much larger population than there used to be. So when you're considering environmental impacts of renewing a license that was originally brought in, I suppose in the 60s or 70s, I would ask that you consider the changes in the community as well, not just the fact that they meet current regulations, that you also consider the impacts of the community that it surrounds, because things have changed. People have brought up health risks and other situations. Again, I was born and raised here, my family was born and raised here. I know a lot of people who were born and raised here. Most of us all have some sort of health issue. Now, obviously I don't have any proof that that's because of WDI. It could have been from something totally random in the area, who knows? But it is coincidental, for sure, that most people have some sort of autoimmune condition, thyroid condition, cancer, other types of medical problems that have all lived here since the facility was brought in. Now, I've met other people who have lived here much longer. They don't necessarily have those issues, but they also didn't spend their entire lifetime with this facility in operation like I have, or like some other people have. You know, if you have been raised somewhere else where you weren't exposed to it during your childhood, when you were developing, it affects you differently than if you're actually raised here around it 24/7. I lived within 3 miles of it my entire life. I've also seen the traffic changes. So whenever the trucks come in off the freeway, it's a very limited space coming in. So making that right-hand turn off of 94 and then a left-hand turn onto the service drive, it backs up traffic a lot. We have a lot of increased traffic because again, the community has changed. It backs up traffic a lot in the community. And I've even personally had a situation where I had a hazardous waste vehicle in front of me that splashed something on my car, and I didn't realize until later that my headlight was melted. I had to file an insurance claim to have it replaced, but I didn't have a picture to prove anything, so.
Thank you for your comment tonight. All right, next is Sanjay, and then my last comment card here is Kelly Villa.
All right, everybody can hear me? Yeah, thank you everybody for your great comments. I'm Sanjay. I am part of the Michigan Against Atomic Waste group as well. First comment, the proposed landfill of the WDI is not just a routine license renewal. It's a direct threat towering over the Willow Run Airport. The FAA in its advisory clinic, circular AC 150/5200-34A, warns that landfills are a hazard to aircraft. This isn't theoretical. We've already seen a runway at Willow Run closed because of this danger. On Sunday, August 13, 2023, during a public air show, a MiG-23 jet crashed barely 1,000 feet from this site. That's 1,000 feet. It was a terrifying preview of the potential catastrophe. Now EGLE is being asked to approve a project that will transform this hazard site into a staggering 225-foot mountain, pushing it even closer to the flight path. To approve this expansion without full independent investigation would be a fatal betrayal of the public trust. I would tell the community that profits matter more than our safety. I demand that EGLE uphold its duty to protect us, stop this action on the license until a comprehensive third-party investigation confirms our safety. Don't wait for tragedy to prove our point. Let's act now before it's too late. So many of the folks here have made legal and technical comments concerning the expansion. We've heard EGLE's perspective. The facility's design and operating plans meet all the technical standards of Part 111, and therefore you must issue the license. But the community's perspective, common sense perspective, is that the law is not enough. It should account for real world risks from disasters that we've already seen happen in our state. We've shown that even if the facility meets the technical compliance, it's not truly safe, and we have a right to be protected from these risks. We have demonstrated that the proposed expansion is a violation of local zoning, a permanent visual nuisance, a detriment to our property values. We've proven that the environmental justice concerns identified by your own agency are not being concerned, leaving our community unprotected. The public is currently unprotected. The township is unable to provide guidance or protection. This responsibility lies with you. To the director of EGLE, per Part 111, you have the final say on public safety. Please exercise this right. Do not allow technicality to endanger your community. We urge you to deny this license. Thank you.
My last comment card here is Kelly Villa. If you would like to make a comment, if you would please make sure you get it over to Elizabeth back there, or bring it right up to me, it's fine too. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Villa, and I have been a resident of Belleville, Van Buren Township for many, many years, along with my husband, and we've also dedicated our lives to many of our students in this community and families. So I'm speaking on behalf not only, and my children live here and grandchildren live in the vicinity as well. So all of those families that we've dedicated our lives to. And I want to just talk about deficiencies. So just a couple of deficiencies I want to talk about. I did attend the last meeting that you had, and it was shared tonight that our first responders are ready and prepared. At the last meeting, we had our mayor, Ken White, here, and Kevin McNamara, our Van Buren Township supervisor, that said that's not true. They've not been prepared in case of an emergency or something failing or transporting something. So I just want to make sure that deficiency is being noted when you're considering this important decision. Both of our leaders said that's not true. We're not prepared, as some of our citizens have brought up, of a spill or something, a burn or fire. We're not prepared. Those are by our leaders. The other deficiency, since I'm going to speak about deficiencies I want to talk about, is in March of 2025, Eagle identified more than 300 deficiencies in the WDI operating license application. WDI responded to the deficiencies in May of 2025. While some of those items were addressed in detail, some were not addressed efficiently or sufficiently, creating a deficiency. So I'm going to turn this question into a statement. Eagle, are you satisfied? I guess it is still a question. Eagle, I am concerned that you're not satisfied with the responses to all 300 of these deficiencies from WDI. We're asking you to do better for our community and our people.
All right, just checking back with our table to see if we had any more cards. No. Okay. Matt, online, just checking to see if we still have people online. Were any comments submitted online?
23 people online, no comments submitted.
Okay, so you have 23 people online still, and no comments were submitted online.
One comment.
Oh, one more comment coming up. Come on up. If that's you, go ahead. You can come on up and we started.
Colleen Holder.
Hold on one second. Yeah, can you please state your name?
Colleen Holder. Colleen Holder. No one has referenced the containers yet. I brought this up before, but it would have been nice if the expansion was separated from the license renewal. And I appreciated the new fact sheet that it's been called out separately of exactly what the expansion is. But I don't think the public has seen that. What Wayne Disposal wants to do is add 2,594 55-gallon drums stacked too high and 72 20-yard roll-off containers. Right now, the containers can be stored for 1 day. They now want to store them for 1 year. Given the mention of the storms and tornadoes and airplanes and all of the other things that are happening, that does not seem safe. What's in those containers in the draft license states T-norm and PCBs. Right now, the license says T-norm must be buried 10 feet deep. Then why are containers going to be allowed that have T-norm in them? Regarding the PCBs, that is not in the EPA license to allow storage of PCBs. The current EPA license and draft license and an application by Wayne Disposal says PCBs can be disposed. They did not apply for expansion to allow PCB containers, nor does the draft license reference that. So I would ask that you deny the containers. I don't recall why they are needed. I know we asked that at our meeting, but they should not be allowed. The height aspect of the expansion has been addressed, and kind of the same thing. Why does it need to go higher? There were already concerns from the EPA about settlement activities, and here's a picture of collapsed pipes that happen when too much weight and too much height, load, and capacity of settlement occurs. Pipes collapse. Please don't allow that either. Thank you. Also leak the roll-offs.
Okay, I don't have any other comment cards here with me tonight. Thank you all for your thoughtful comments. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who's going to read our closing statement, and then I'll let Tracy, if you want to make any final remarks, you can use those.
All right, thanks, Jim. Thank you to you all for your comments and for your interest in coming tonight. All participants are reminded that the public comment period is open until October 31st, 2025. We will be accepting comments via the methods up on this screen until 5 p.m. on October 31st. So you do still have a chance to provide a comment if you have not done so at this meeting tonight. With that, we'll now close the public hearing. The time is 8:35 p.m. Thank you all again and have a great night.
Tracy,
I want to say thanks again. Jim, can you remind me what our time is? I need to be wrapped up. Okay, so folks, we need to be out of the facility at 9 o'clock. It does give us just a little less than half an hour. If there's any questions you want to talk about here tonight, again, staff's available, I'm available, Cecilia, our EPA colleagues. If you'd like to take advantage of that opportunity, please do so. And just thanks again for coming tonight. Thanks, Kevin.